you raise your right hand, please?
Do I need to stand?
No, you
Okay.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this call will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Clemens, I think you've said on a number of occasions in various interviews and on the record that it's hard to prove a negative, isn't it right?
I have.
Yeah. And that you recognize that a lot of people don't believe that you didn't use steroids or PEDs or HGH.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
And let me make sure, yeah, that when you hear me say object to the form, that doesn't have anything to do with your answer. It's just me preserving issues for later for the court. But whenever you hear me say that, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to answer. So go ahead and answer.
Yeah, ask it again, please.
Sure. You recognize that there are many people who don't believe that your claim that you didn't use PEDs, steroids, or HGH.
Object to
There are a
the
lot
form.
of people who don't believe that. Is that right?
Object to the form.
Okay.
I don't know who a lot of people are, but
Right.
I didn't use steroids or HGH, so
I understand, but you recognize that many people don't believe that you didn't.
Object to the form.
Is that correct? I think you've said so, haven't you? That there are a lot of people out there who don't believe you.
I don't know who a lot of people are, but so I don't.
Do you know of any reasons in your own mind that people wouldn't believe that you didn't use?
Object to the form.
Well, I stated that I didn't use HGH or steroids, so
Right. But do you know of any reasons why people might not believe you?
Object to the form.
again, I can't think for other people. I can't think for other people.
All right. Well, let me try and go through some reasons and ask you about them as to why people might not believe that you didn't use them, all right, didn't use PEDs. You performed perhaps historically exceptionally well after your 30s and well into your 40s as a pitcher, isn't that correct?
I think I did fairly well.
Well, you won 3 Cy Youngs after you were 36, right?
Don't know the age. I haven't looked at my numbers in a while, but
It's probably right, right?
I would say possibly.
And I don't think you're the oldest pitcher who's ever won a Cy Young award. You were the oldest pitcher who ever won one.
Again, I don't know my numbers.
Okay. So people might have thought that you used PEDs to help you when you got older. Isn't that correct?
Object to the form.
I don't know what people are thinking as far as that goes.
Well, you've heard that people think that, haven't you?
Again, I'm not going to guess on what other people think about me. I can't guess on what people are thinking about me.
I'm not going to ask you to guess. I'm just going to ask you a simple question. Have you heard that other people think you use PEDs because in your later years you were such an exceptionally excellent pitcher and you had such a good record? Have you heard it?
Well, I believe I've seen articles stating that, but I feel like I was a pretty good pitcher throughout my whole career. I mean,
Right. But pitchers usually taper off after they're 36 or 37. Their fastball slows down. They get not as effective usually. You were an exception to that, right?
Object to the form.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
You know of other pitchers who've done that, a couple, right?
I'm sure there's other pitchers.
Right. But you've never heard that because your performance was so superb after you, as an older pitcher, that people thought you may be using PEDs. You never heard it. I'm asking you whether you heard it.
I'm not going to guess on that. I don't know what people have said about my performances.
I understand that you don't know what people have said. I'm simply asking you the question whether you've heard that people have said that.
I think there could have been speculation about it, but I don't, again, I didn't put a lot of stock into it either way. I was out there doing my job.
Right. But you read about it, you read about the speculation, you heard about such speculation, right?
I'm sure at some point I've heard something, but
And you were aware, were you not, that when you were, as you were getting older, and as you were learning that a lot of players were taking steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs, that you were, as a pitcher, having to face batters who were better because of the steroids they took?
can you repeat that one?
You knew as you were getting older that there were a lot of batters who were taking steroids and that the steroids were helping them, didn't you?
I did not know batters were taking steroids.
But you thought there were batters who were taking steroids and that their performance was enhanced by the steroids.
I don't know that to be true either.
Well, didn't you complain about that to Jose Canseco, for one? That there are batters out there, they're taking steroids, and it's not fair because they're doing so much better than they used to do.
That would have been probably after the fact when I talked to Jose Canseco. I would think that was probably when he was a teammate of mine.
Right, and he was taking steroids, right?
Didn't know that at the time.
You had no knowledge that he was taking steroids at the time.
That's correct.
Okay. And, but you did know that he advocated using steroids, didn't you?
Not at the time I met Jose Canseco as a teammate.
On all three teams that you played with him on, you didn't know that?
At the first time I met Jose, I did not know that.
You never said that if you bleed Jose, you'd bleed Deca.
No.
You never said that?
No.
Okay. So when was it that you learned that Jose Canseco used steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs?
I believe it was a book of his that came out.
And that's the first you ever heard of him using such drugs?
That's the first time that I believe he said that he used steroids.
Well, that you heard that he'd used steroids, or that you discussed steroid use with him?
I would have said prior to that it had only been an assumption.
You
on,
assumed.
on my part.
Right. And he was a better batter because he used steroids, right?
I don't believe that to be true.
How about Jason Giambi? Was he a better batter because he used steroids?
I don't know his numbers or records, but I don't believe that to be true.
Okay. You think he would have had those numbers and the records that he had even if he hadn't used steroids?
I can't really think of, again, on what, you know, I'll let Jason Giambi tell you that. I can't speak for him.
Well, I'm asking you what your view of it was. You had to face various batters. Maybe you didn't face Giambi. I don't know. You did face Giambi at some point, didn't you?
I would imagine.
Yeah. And Giambi and I guess Bonds was in. Did you face Bonds?
Yes.
And did you face other batters that you thought were using steroids at the time you faced them?
I think it was an assumption.
Right. And you thought it was unfair, right? That these people were using steroids, and you say you weren't, and you had to pitch against them, and they could bat a whole lot better because they were using them.
I don't think, again, assuming, I don't think it made them any better of a hitter or player.
You think Bonds' records were not affected by steroids?
I think Barry Bonds was a very good hitter before, even if he admitted using steroids or not, I don't know. But I think he was a very good hitter, and I think he hurt himself if, in fact, he did take steroids, because I think it shortens your career and it breaks you down.
You don't think his performances near the end of his career were enhanced by steroid and PED use?
I didn't follow his numbers, so I couldn't answer that.
And you don't think it was unfair of him to be using steroids and you having to pitch against him?
When I faced Barry Bonds, it didn't enter my mind if he was a steroid user or not. He was just a very good hitter.
And what about any other players that turned out to be good hitters when they perhaps weren't in their earlier careers? Didn't you think, hey, these guys are using steroids and I have to face them, and is that fair?
Well, again, at the time you're facing them, that's not really what you're worried about. You're trying to get outs in a game, so I don't, and again, I don't know to what extent they did or didn't use.
Right. Now, you think there's anything unfair about using steroids to gain an advantage as a batter facing you?
Again, I don't look at it being fair or unfair. I think that it hurts you. I think they hurt their careers.
Right.
And their health.
And you don't think it helps them when they're up at bat at that moment do better against you as a pitcher?
I couldn't answer to that.
I'm just asking you what your thought process is.
Again, when obviously I dislike assuming, but if a player was up there and he was assumed to be using steroids, that wasn't my thought process when I'm facing really any hitter.
Well, I know that it wasn't your thought process when you were exactly facing the hitter, but as a general proposition, when you're talking about it in the clubhouse, when you're talking to Jose Canseco, aren't you expressing concerns? These guys are using steroids. They can hit a whole lot better than they could if they hadn't.
I think if the topic came up where I talked to any player about anything that I thought was harmful to them, whether it be steroids or smoking or chewing or dipping, I would basically tell them about that.
I understand.
That it wasn't healthy.
I understand that, but that's a different question, and you're not answering the question I was trying to ask.
Okay.
And the question I'm trying to ask is, did you express that it was unfair to be facing batters whose performance was enhanced by steroids? Whether it was unhealthy in the long run or whether it was a problem for them in the long run, I'm talking about you as a pitcher facing batters whose performances were enhanced.
I don't know that I, ever expressed that. Again, once I'm facing guys that were on the assumption of using PEDs, it wasn't something that I was concerned about.
Okay, is it your testimony here under oath today that you didn't discuss the unfairness of this with Jose Canseco?
Object to the form.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
Yeah.
But so it's not your testimony that you didn't discuss it?
Again, I don't remember.
Right, you don't remember, but you're not saying you did not discuss it with Jose Canseco. Is that your testimony?
I don't remember. I mean, I just don't remember.
I understand. So if you don't remember, it's possible that you discussed this with Jose Canseco. Is that correct? How unfair it was?
I don't remember.
I understand. If you don't remember, is it possible that it happened?
Again, I don't remember.
Right. All right. Now, I think I can't make the question any simpler because, well, let me ask you this. When you don't remember something, does that mean it didn't happen?
Again, I don't remember a conversation. I know I've had conversations with Jose, but I just don't remember what you're asking me about.
Right. I understand that you don't remember. You've said that a few times. My question is, if you don't remember, could it possibly have happened that you had such a conversation even though you don't remember it?
I don't remember the conversation.
But do you only admit the possibility of things that you remember and then everything you don't remember never happened?
I don't know that I understand that question now. that
Okay,
you're-
so when you don't remember something, in your mind, does that mean it didn't happen?
No, it just remembers. It remains that I don't remember if I can't recall the exact conversation.
So it could have happened even though you don't remember it, right?
I just don't remember it.
Right. But this is a epistemological issue here we're talking about. If you know what that word means, it means it's philosophical. It's about reality. I'm just asking you a question about reality of the existence of human beings. And all I'm asking you, sir, is if you don't remember something, could that something have happened even though you don't remember it?
Well, I would think I would have a little bit of a memory about it, but as you're asking me right now, I don't remember.
Right. And therefore it could have happened, but you don't remember it, right?
I just don't remember when you were asking me that conversation.
All right.
Can I tell you about
All right, we can, you know, I can get off the subject if that's all right. I'll just get off. We'll keep going, all right?
Go ahead.
Now, let me put this back. The one thing that's not controversial is your illustrious pitching career. 356 victories, over 2,500, almost 2,600 strikeouts, and over 3,000 innings. Almost a strikeout an inning, right? Close. Pretty impressive. And you know, right, that your pitching prowess and your statistics and your accomplishments were darn near as impressive as you got older as they were when you were younger, because you worked real hard, right?
I was very fortunate to have a long career, yes.
And you worked hard to maintain that career.
Yes.
And your career was not only about having a long career, the excellence of your pitching continued all the way towards the end of till the end of your career.
I had some really solid years for my teams, yes.
Quality years as a pitcher, as good as anybody in the league.
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
Better than almost everybody in the league.
Well, I don't know about that, but I held my own, yes.
You were Cy Young Award winner in 2004, right?
Yes.
And you were up there in the Cy Young voting even in years after that, right?
I don't know that.
Okay. And in your later years, when you were with, call the later years for purposes of this discussion, Toronto, Yankees, Astros, Yankees, right? Those years from 97 on. Even though I don't like to think of them as later years myself, but later years for a guy like you, who's a superb athlete. You never relied on what a lot of pitchers rely on, namely slowing down your fastball and throwing junk or doing deceptive things. You overpowered hitters, right? That was your methodology.
I was a fastball pitcher, yes.
To the end.
Yes.
Right, you relied on your fastball, split finger or otherwise. You relied on your fastball.
I relied on my fastball, but my control the most.
Right, your control. You had historic control. Nobody had control as good as yours, really. I mean, well, not nobody, but you were in the rarefied group of people with unbelievable control, uncanny control.
I don't know that they keep those numbers, but
That's what people thought about you, and that's what you thought about yourself.
I can't control what people thought about me, but I was a power pitcher.
Yeah, I know you can't control what people thought about you, and you have to admit that a lot of people think you used performance-enhancing drugs, right?
Well, again, I don't know what other people were thinking.
Okay. So you relied on your fastball all the way into, what, 2007, right? When you ended your career.
It was one of my 4 pitches.
Right. But it was the one you really relied on to get people out, to strike them out.
Not necessarily.
All right. But your methodology of pitching didn't change really very much, did it, over the course of your entire career. You used the same kind of methodology from beginning to end.
Object to the form.
You can answer. You can answer. Yeah.
I was a control pitcher. I was a power pitcher.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't change during the course of your career, that facet of your excellence.
I don't know what you mean by it didn't change.
You used the same skills that you had from the beginning of your career to the end, using fastballs and control.
Well, I had four pitches, and probably equally with my fastball was my split finger late in my career.
Okay. But a split finger is a fastball also, right?
No,
What is it? What do you call it?
it's more of a changeup.
I see. Sorry, my
no worries.
mistake. So, are you aware that it's in all likelihood you haven't been admitted to the Hall of Fame already from the 3 occasions when you've been eligible because of the allegations of your using performance-enhancing drugs?
Object to the form.
Am I aware?
That you weren't admitted because of the allegations of your use of performance-enhancing drugs? You
Object to
attri-
the form.
Let me put it differently. I'll put it differently. You attribute, do you not, the fact that you haven't been admitted to the Hall of Fame in 3 years when you were eligible to the allegations, McNamee's allegations and the allegations that you used performance-enhancing drugs?
Yes, and for the fact that I have no control of what a writer's thinking is. I think
Right.
the writers, obviously the writers vote on that.
Right, and the writers are thinking that you use drugs and therefore you shouldn't get in. Isn't that right?
I don't think all the writers do.
But some of them, enough to keep you out of the Hall of Fame.
I would agree with that.
Right. So you're aware that there are a substantial number of writers out there who think you use performance-enhancing drugs.
Again, I can't control that. So.
Right. But you believe it because they didn't vote for you to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but you'd have to ask them.
You certainly believe yourself that on the numbers and because of your success, you should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
I don't have I'm kind of indifferent to the Hall of Fame. That's not the reason why I played.
I
So
understand that, but I'm asking you whether you believe you should have been admitted.
If that's your final stopping point as a professional player, great. But I don't have any control over that.
I know. My question is different. My question is, do you believe that you should have been admitted, that the writers should have voted you in?
I have no control, zero control of what the writers do or say in the Hall of Fame matter. So it's not something that I worry about.
I'm not asking you whether you worry, and I'm not asking you whether you have control. You have a lot of control on the mound, but you're right. You have no control over what they think.
That's right.
I'm asking you a very simple question. Do you believe you should be in the Hall of Fame?
It's not a concern of mine. I mean, it's not something that a concern of mine.
I'm not asking you whether it's a concern of yours or whether you are, I'm just asking you whether you have a belief about whether you should be in the Hall of Fame.
And my answer would be it's not a concern whether I am or not.
Are you testifying that you've never thought about it?
Of being in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
I haven't really had to think about it.
But have you ever thought about it even though you didn't have to?
No, because there are articles, and I've taken young kids and teams to the Hall of Fame to see articles of mine in the Hall of Fame. So it's not something I think about.
You're telling me that with all the controversy surrounding your steroid use and your non-admission to the Hall of Fame, you have never thought about being in the Hall of Fame?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
Never,
Never.
never.
Did you ever see this cover of the Daily News that came out the other day? I'm going to just show it to you. We don't have to mark it as an exhibit unless council wants us to. Where Jose Torres advocates putting you in the Hall of Fame along with a bunch of others with an asterisk after your name.
Have I seen this article?
Yeah, or have you seen any reports of the similar subject?
About being in the Hall of Fame.
About putting you in with an asterisk, along with Bonds and Giambi, and a couple of others.
I haven't seen this article.
Right, but have you seen anything about that subject matter?
I don't believe I have.
Would you want to be in the Hall of Fame with an asterisk after your name?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I don't have any control of that. I haven't even heard of that rule, if there is such a rule.
Would you want to be in the Hall of Fame?
If that is your final stop as a professional athlete, that's great. I mean, I think I've made the comment that there's already bits and pieces of my career in the Hall.
I understand. And my question is, would you like to be admitted into the Hall of Fame?
I don't have really a feeling one way or the other. So I think I've made the comment that if it happens, great, and I have a lot of people to thank, but I'm sure I've made a comment or two on it somewhere, but I think over the last number of years, it's really been put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Right, I understand. Let me quote something
I don't think I
that is an article in the Houstonist, where you're answering questions and answers, and the question that's put to you, and this is on, what's the date here, Deb? 6/19/2009. June 19th, 2009, you're quoted in an article on questions and answers in an interview with the Houstonist, where you're asked, do you think you will ever get into the Hall of Fame? I guess these are people who are coming in on the internet, right? And you're answering questions on the internet because it's from GINPGNAG or something like that. It's from some kind of a fan or person, and you're on this. And your answer, reported here in this transcript, is the Hall of Fame is the final resting spot for players who have made their mark in the Major League Baseball, and absolutely, I'd love to be part of the Hall of Fame. There are bits and pieces of me there now. Having said that, you have to be voted in, and as a player, you have no control over that. It's a fantastic place, a fantastic town, right? You say that?
That
sounds
like,
right, right? Sounds similar to what you're saying now, but it also sounds, doesn't it, that like you would like to be in the Hall of Fame, and you've thought about it.
I think that anytime I'm asked about the Hall of Fame, I'm very complimentary of them.
Right.
They've been extremely nice to me, and like I said, Little League teams and teams that I've taken up there to show the inside of the guts of things, and they've been gracious enough to bring out pieces of my articles that are there. So anytime that I talk about the Hall of Fame or the people there, sure.
But, oh yeah, but you say in this quote, do you
Can
not?
we kind of identify this thing?
Sure,
that
it's the
we're
same.
talking about?
It's sure. Here's a copy. Well, you want to mark it? We can mark it. It's not.
Sure. Thank
It's
you.
not that big a deal, one way or the other. We'll mark it in a second. But you say, "I'd love to be part of the Hall of Fame." That's part of what you said. Do you stand by that? You'd love to be part of the Hall of Fame?
I do, and I am.
Right. But you'd love to be admitted to the Hall of Fame as a full-fledged member, wouldn't you?
I don't have control over that.
Right. But you'd love to have it happen.
Again, I have pieces of article there now, and I get to visit, and it's a fantastic place.
But you'd love if you were admitted as a player, wouldn't you? It'd be an honor.
I do not have any control over that.
I understand that.
I have zero control over that.
Let's put aside your control. You don't have control over whether it rains tomorrow either, but you hope it doesn't rain tomorrow because you want to play golf, right? So, wouldn't you hope to be in the Hall of Fame, according to
the
this?
form.
You can answer.
Again, I feel like I'm already part of the Hall of Fame because they have articles of mine and they show, I think, quite a bit of people, artifacts of mine that what I've done over my career. So
You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame even before anybody alleged that you used performance-enhancing drugs in your mind, right?
Object to the form.
You deserved it in 1996 or 1995. You deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, right?
I didn't play my career to worry about getting into the Hall of Fame.
I know, I'm asking you whether you deserved it.
I don't have a say-so in those matters.
Right, but do you deserve it? You're in your own mind.
Again, I don't, it's not something that I think about every day.
Well, how about
so-
today? Do you think you deserve it as you sit here right now? Think about it. Take as much time as you want. Tell me, after thinking about it yourself, whether you think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
Again, I can't speak or think for the people that have the vote, So I'm not going to, again, I can't think for those people.
Right. And I'm asking you to think for yourself, not for those people. I'm asking you to sit here and think for yourself. Do you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
And my answer to that would be I had a wonderful career, a very blessed, wonderful career.
And as a result of that, do you think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? You don't want to say yes or no?
I have pieces of article in the Hall of Fame right now that
Admitted as a full-fledged player.
as a full-fledged player, I have articles and great stuff in the Hall of Fame now.
But you're not in the Hall of Fame, right? You know the difference between having articles in the Hall of Fame and being admitted to the Hall of Fame like Joe Torre was the other day.
I am not a part of the Hall of Fame induction or elected personnel.
Right. And sitting here today, take your time. Do you think you deserve to be admitted in that way as an inducted member of the Hall of Fame? Yes or no?
I feel that I had a great career and that I do not have control of whether I'm in the Hall of Fame or not.
Do you think you're worthy enough to be inducted in the Hall of Fame because of your great career?
Worthy.
As a player?
Well, as a player, I have articles there that I'm very proud of.
The question I ask you is whether you are worthy as a player to be inducted in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know that. I don't have a vote, and I don't know what
So you have no
people think.
opinion on your own accomplishments as to whether they are sufficiently worthy for you to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I had a great 24 years. I think I had a wonderful career, and worked really hard. I mean, it was a great career.
No question about it. And you're probably the second or third or maybe the first best pitcher of all time, right? You would think that, wouldn't you? Close.
No, because I think there's a lot of great pitchers out there.
Right, but you're one of the great ones.
I had a great career.
Right. And as one of the great ones, a lot of lesser pitchers, Glavine got admitted to the Hall of Fame last week, right? He was a much lesser pitcher than you, wasn't he?
Object to the form.
In your own view.
I don't know that.
And
I
you
don't
don't
know.
have a view of whether you were a better pitcher than Glavine?
I don't know Tommy's numbers, and he probably did things on the mound better than I did.
And so, if Glavine was admitted to the Hall of Fame as an inductee, you don't think you deserve to be admitted to the Hall of Fame as an inductee?
Object to the form.
Again, I don't know. I'm not going to think for writers or who likes you or who don't.
I'm not asking you to think for writers. I'm asking you to think for yourself.
Richard, he just doesn't want to say nice things about himself, and I don't
Well,
think you can try to the cows come
I
home.
know,
He's
but
not
I
gonna do it.
want him to say nice things about himself. So but all I want to do is actually, I don't want him to say nice things about himself. I want him to think for himself. I just want you to think for yourself and sit here and decide whether you think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Object to the form.
Well, it's not the way, again, I think about myself. I think I had a very good career.
All right. I know, I understand. Now, you do agree, however, do you not, that you would be admitted to the Hall of Fame if it hadn't been for McNamee's allegations, right?
Object to the form.
Again, I don't know that.
You think you wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame if you hadn't been identified as somebody who may have used steroids?
I moved so far past that.
All right. You and the Dalai Lama, huh? No. You want me to mark the Houstonian?
Please.
All right, sure. We'll do it. Can you do it, Deb? We don't have to have her do it.
Can you just pass me the original?
Yes.
Sure, we'll mark that. Thank you very much, Mr. Clemens. Now, McNamee said, you're aware, are you not, that he injected you with steroids in 1998, with HGH and steroids in the year 2000, and steroids in 2001. You've heard those allegations, right?
I've heard those allegations, not sure on the dates, but
Mm-hmm. And your position is he lied.
yes.
And originally, back in January, I think it was January 7th, is that a Sunday? The 7th or the 6th? 6th was a Sunday, I think. 4th, 5th, 6th. The 6th was a Sunday. You were on 60 Minutes on the Sunday, the January 6th, 2008. Some Sunday, you appeared on 60 Minutes, right?
I was on 60 Minutes.
And that Sunday night, your lawyers filed a defamation suit against Mr. McNamee here in Texas, right?
I believe so, yes.
And that defamation suit alleged that he lied about you to the Mitchell investigators and in the Mitchell report and to the federal investigators about your use of steroids and HGH,
I believe so.
and that he defamed you by doing that.
Yes.
And then you held a press conference the next day to announce the filing of that lawsuit, correct?
I don't know if it was the next day, but there was a press conference.
I think it
yes.
was Monday the 7th. I watched it, and we have a bunch of records that say it was Monday the 7th. You don't dispute that it was Monday the 7th, that you had
I
a
don't
press
know.
conference with Mr. Hardin and others to announce the filing of the lawsuit and talk about the fact that you assert that you did not use steroids or HGH, right?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
Don't know the date.
Okay.
I
But
do
you
know-
remember a press conference like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It was on ESPN, carried live nationally.
I don't know who covered it.
Okay. Now, you pursued that lawsuit, or Mr. Hardin pursued it on behalf of you for a long time here in Texas, and I defended it. And I think it went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. I got to argue in the Fifth Circuit in the en banc room. It was great. And it was ultimately dismissed because the court said, you probably remember this, that there was no jurisdiction over Brian McNamee in Texas. Does that ring a bell?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay. And then McNamee, at some point during this process, sued you for defamation in this case in Brooklyn, in federal court. You know that. That's
Yes.
why we're here,
That's why we're
right?
here.
I'm taking your deposition in that case. And when that case was filed, you chose not to sue McNamee again for defamation. Is that correct?
I believe so.
You remember that you could have sued McNamee for defamation when he sued you, but you chose not to.
I believe that's correct.
And the reason you chose not to is because you were worried about inquiry into your reputation. Isn't that right?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I'm not sure about that.
Why didn't you sue him?
I think, again, I can't, I'm not going to speculate. I just think the lawsuit was dropped.
And why didn't you sue him, though? I mean, you sued him once. It was dismissed on grounds that had nothing to do with the actual defamation. You claim he lied. He hurt your career.
Your microphone. microphone fell off.
I'm sorry. He hurt your career. He hurt your career. You claim he defamed you by lying. You had an opportunity to sue him in New York when he sued you. Why not just sue him back,
Object to the form.
if you know?
I don't. I don't know what I discussed or what we discussed about it.
Okay. Now, you remember the allegation of Brian McNamee that in 1998 he injected you for the first time around June?
Can you, excuse me, we've been an
Sure.
hour, so you
Sure,
pick
you
the
want a break?
time. If we could just take a 5 or 10. Is this
Yeah,
work-
let's
that work okay? 'Cause it's
let's
a
have
new
him
s-
answer that
quick
question,
finish
and
your
then we'll
question.
take a
Sure,
break.
sure.
Okay? Do you remember the allegation that Mr. McNamee injected you for the first time in around June of 1998 when you were in Toronto?
I remember the actual accusation. I don't remember the exact time. I think it was 98.
Yeah, sometime around June?
I believe that to be true, yes.
Right. There was a Conseco party, and then down in Tampa, and then there was this claim that he sued you in June of 1998, right? Hmm? No, I'm sorry, sued you, gave you an injection. Thank you. My colleague, my partner tells me I'm misusing my words. Do you remember that the allegation was that he injected you for the first time shortly after the Conseco party in early June 1998?
I believe that's what he claimed, yes.
Okay, you want to take a break?
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure, thank you.
Restrooms are out to the left.
The time is 10:22 a.m.
Okay, so is it your testimony that steroids do not help performance?
That is my belief, yes.
Right. So it's not unfair to use them if it doesn't help
Object to the
performance
form.
in baseball?
I don't know that.
Well, if it doesn't affect performance, in your view, why shouldn't they be used?
I think you'd have to ask the people that were using them.
Okay.
I don't have an opinion on that.
All right. Now, but you don't see it as unfair for somebody who's using steroids to play baseball, right? Because they're not getting any performance enhancement.
I think they're hurting themselves.
Right, as people, but they're not enhancing their baseball performance, are they, in your view?
I believe those types of drugs can hurt you. I
Right.
think they make your body break down.
Right, but do they enhance immediately your performance on the field?
Don't know that.
Right. You have no belief that they do, according to you, they do not enhance your performance?
Again, I have my own beliefs on
Right, your own beliefs, I'm
the
asking you
topic
that.
I think it hurts you. I think it makes your body break down. I don't think they're helpful.
And they don't even help in performance at all, for
Again,
batters, for instance?
I don't know that.
All right. You have a belief that they don't help?
Roger, he's asking, do you believe, what is your belief as to whether when somebody uses these things, if they do, whether or not it actually helps them perform? I think that's what his question was.
That's right. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if it helps them perform or I don't know what it does for them.
If it doesn't help them perform, then it's not unfair to use them, right?
Object to the form.
Again, I don't have a view other than I think my view is that I believe they hurt you. And I think I've made an offhand comment that I think that as being lighthearted, that it only makes you look good in the lobby. I don't think they help you.
And
As in lobby
Do you-
your physique or in your
right.
in your suit running around.
Right. And therefore, Do they help you in any way perform on the baseball field, in your view,
I think they hurt you.
on the baseball field?
Yes.
And what do you base that on?
I would think that the guys break down on it. I don't really have I'm not
Do you think
an expert by any means, but I just don't think they help you. I think they hurt you. I
Did
think guys
did
break
they hurt
down.
you?
Did what hurt me?
Steroids or HGH?
Never took them.
So how would you know whether they hurt people or not?
I think for the fact that just seeing the guys that you assumed, and now I know because they have said they used them, I just think they had issues with their health.
Was Canseco one of those?
I think he might have had health issues. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask him.
But do you think it helped him play baseball, the steroids?
I don't think it helped him.
You think he would have been as good as he was without steroids?
Again, I think it probably hurt him. I think it probably hurt him. And again, I'm not an expert on it.
Now, did you ever tell him that he should, where is that line? That he should get off the hard stuff, meaning get off steroids?
I think I told Jose that, yes.
So you had discussions with Jose about steroids,
Minimal.
and you thought he was having trouble at some points in your career when you were with him on the same team because of the steroids.
I remember a conversation I had with him about, and again, I was assuming that get off the hard stuff so he could get healthy. Yeah. Yes.
And when was that conversation, to your recollection?
We were teammates. First time we were teammates was probably 97, so it would 98, probably 1998 sometime.
So in 1998, you have recollection of talking with Jose Canseco about steroids.
I believe so.
All right.
He was my teammate, I believe, earlier than that, though. I think in Boston too. So I'm not sure. I believe he was my teammate in Boston at one point.
All right. Now, you know that Mr. McNamee has alleged correctly, that he's alleged that he injected you in 1998 around June, sometime after the Canseco party, at your request. That's what he said.
Objective form.
I believe so.
And do you know what your record was at that point for the Toronto Blue Jays?
I do not.
If I told you it was 5-6 or 6-6, right around then, would that refresh your recollection?
It would not.
You had a difficult start that year,
In which year?
1998,
I
for
don't
you.
re-
A difficult start for you.
I don't remember.
All right. And that after he says he started injecting you with steroids at around June, you didn't lose another game the whole year, and you went 20-6 that year?
Object to the form.
I'm not sure what my record was.
1998, you don't know your record was 20-6?
I believe I finished the season with 20 wins, yes.
Right. And you won every game after the beginning of June, except the ones that were not were no decisions.
Again, I don't look at my stats that much, so.
Do you think that might be a reason that people think that McNamee was telling the truth?
Object to the form.
again, I don't know what my numbers were, and I know he didn't inject me with steroids or HGH. So
I understand, but I'm asking you, do you think that may be another reason why people think that you use steroids in the way that he alleged you did?
Object to the form.
again, I don't know what people would think.
You had an exceptional year after the point that he says he injected you with steroids, right? Not losing a game from the beginning of June until the end of the year.
Object to the form.
I'm not sure. I know I had a good year, and I know 20 wins is a barometer for pitchers. And I believe the team did well also, but I don't know that my year I had a good year in '97 and '98, I believe, with the Blue Jays, so yeah.
Right, you won the Cy Young in '97, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in 1999, you were traded to the Yankees, right?
Correct.
And that was your first year at the Yankees.
Correct.
And that year you didn't have a very good year, did you?
I don't know.
Well, McNamee wasn't with you that year, isn't that right?
McNamee was not part of the Yankees organization, I don't
He
believe.
joined the Yankees organization later on in 2000, is that correct?
I believe so, he was there.
Right. So, in 1999, do you have a recollection of being in the American League Championship against Boston?
Yes.
And you had a pitching performance there where people reported that you were bombed in the American League Championship, and the team lost, and you lost the game.
Hmm.
You remember that?
I don't.
You don't remember that at all, and that you were very upset about it, and you're very concerned about your performance and your legs?
I had.
Can you give him a specific game if you know? Or
I think it was the third game of the American League Championship Series, I believe.
I had a couple bad games, so in championship series.
Right.
But
And your year wasn't close to what your prior 2 years had been, isn't that right? And when you went to the Yankees, you first went there and were paid a huge salary, more than you'd ever been paid before.
Object to the form.
again, I'm not totally certain what my contract was. And I'm sure I've had some poor games, yes. And I'm sure I was upset about it.
Right. And you remember struggling through a hamstring injury or a leg injury of some kind during that period? Groin injury, sorry, a groin injury in 1999.
Sure, I've had several groin injuries, yes.
Right. And you remember it in 1999 that you pitched, trying to pitch through groin injuries?
I've done that several times too, so.
Right. And I need the rest of it. So the and you thanks. And you remember having a conversation with Brian Cashman after that game when you were hit badly and lost.
Not sure that I remember it.
Do you remember Brian Cashman testifying at your trial in Washington, D.C., where Rusty Hardin defended you successfully?
I do.
And you remember him describing circumstances of a game in the American League Championship Series in 1999 where you had a conversation with him after the game where you were very upset and very depressed by your performance?
I remember his testimony a little bit. I remember him talking a little bit about my being with the Yankees.
Right. And you remember him saying that you said to him, I need McNamee, you got to get McNamee down here to help me?
Object to the form.
Or words to that effect?
I sure could have. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what I would have said to him, but I remember a text or a phone call to him.
Do you remember an in-person conversation right after the game when you were very upset and wanting McNamee to be there to help you out of this problems that you were having?
I believe I remember when you telling me when he was testifying, I remember he made some comments about that.
Mm-hmm. And was he wrong?
I just don't remember the conversation in detail.
All right.
So I do remember.
But you don't dispute that his memory was correct about that?
I just don't remember the entire conversation.
Right. But he does remember it. You heard that, right?
I remember with you asking me about his testimony, I remember coming in and testifying about quite a bit of my career with the Yankees.
Right, and in particular,
He's just talking about the conversation.
Yeah.
in particular,
I'm
the
not sure that-
conversation you
Sorry.
had with him after this particular game when you were upset with your performance.
Sorry, yes. Again, I remember, what I remember is a phone call or a text, I believe I sent to Brian Cashman.
And and so, and you remember him saying that we'll work that out or we'll make that happen or something like that in response?
I don't remember that.
All right. Now, why was it at that point you were asking for McNamee to be brought down there?
The conversation, text or phone call that I remember, I think I sent a text and a phone call to Mr. Cashman pertaining Brian McNamee. Was he was wanting to leave the Blue Jays to come to the Yankees to be closer to his family and work back in New York.
Well, that's not what Mr. Cashman testified to, is it?
Object to the form.
I'm not sure what I don't know what Brian said.
Well, Brian Cashman testified that you wanted him there to help you because you were not performing well and you wanted to perform better. Isn't that
Object to the
correct?
form.
That's what he said
If he said that, then he said that.
in so many words. And did you don't dispute that you said that to him, do you?
I don't remember the entire conversation, and again, I don't remember if that was via text or a phone call.
But you could have said that to him. That would have been okay. That would have been consistent with your feelings at that time.
I knew that Brian wanted to come back to New York, and it would have been great to have him there, sure.
But the reason you said to Cashman that you wanted him back was to help you because you'd performed so poorly.
Object to the
Is
form.
that correct?
I'm not sure. I don't know that I remember that.
Right. You remember him testifying to that effect?
Object to the form.
I remember him testifying, yes.
All right. Now, you finished that year with about a 4.7 or 4.6 ERA. It's one of the highest of your careers, 1999. Sorry, yeah, 1999. You remember that?
I've had some high ERAs, yes.
Right. Well, that was one of the poorest, wasn't it, during this whole stretch of time?
Again, I don't know my numbers. It's
Right.
I don't.
And McNamee did come back to the Yankees in 2000. Isn't that correct? For the 2000 season.
See, he was with the Yankees before the Blue Jays. 99, he was back with the Yankees, yes.
2000.
2000. He's back
99, he was with the Blue Jays,
with Blue
correct?
Jays, 99.
And then 2000, he came back to the Yankees because you requested he come back.
Brian McNamee asked, he was, and again, I believe it was 2000. Brian asked me to contact Cashman, and he wanted to come back to the Yankees.
And you wanted him back at the
Sure,
Yankees, right?
I was
Right.
glad. You know, he
And
wanted
in
to-
fact, you paid him to go back to the Yankees through your contract with the Yankees. Isn't that correct?
Object to the form.
I don't believe that to be true.
You don't think they deducted his salary from your contract?
I don't believe so.
You think that he was paid by the Yankees without taking any money from you to do so?
I believe so.
Well, did you ever have an agreement with the Yankees to deduct from your salary or your payments from your contract an amount to pay Brian McNamee.
I don't believe so.
Now, in 2000, Mr. McNamee has said that he injected you with both HGH and steroids. Isn't that right?
Did not happen.
But he said it, right?
Again, I don't know, I can't remember the exact dates, but I know that he's claimed that.
He's claimed that he injected you with HGH and steroids in 2000.
Again, I don't know the dates, but
Right. And in 2000, you had an extremely successful year as a pitcher. Isn't that right?
in 2000, I think I had a pretty good year in 2000.
Right. And what?
Actually, it would have been a good year because we went to the World Series.
Right. Not this one. I want the basic records. And you went to the World Series. That year you didn't win, is that correct?
What year?
2000. Am I wrong about that?
The New York Yankees won the World Series in '99 and 2000.
Mm-hmm. And that's a year when he's claimed that he was injecting you with HGH and steroids. Is that right?
Not sure about the years.
Now, you're aware that Jose Canseco disagreed with you and believed that steroids help performance. Isn't that correct?
Objective to form.
I don't know that.
Help performance on the baseball field.
I don't know that if I personally heard him say that.
But you also learned at some point and knew, I believe, according to your own testimony in 1999, that he was a steroid user himself.
That could be possible, yes.
Right? You told him to get off the hard stuff because you thought it was hurting him.
And if that was the conversation I had with him, I was assuming.
And you overlapped with Jose Canseco in the Red Sox, is that correct? 95 or thereabouts, 96. And in the Blue Jay, excuse me? Yeah, you have to answer verbally. Just,
Yes, I believe he was a teammate in 1995.
And 1996.
No, I don't, I'd have to see that.
And you went from 96 from the Red Sox. After that season, you went to the Toronto Blue Jays, correct?
Correct.
And in 96, you remember that Dan Duquette, the manager of the Boston Red Sox, said you were in the twilight of your career.
Yes.
And you sure proved him wrong after that, didn't you? You had another 11 years of relative success, correct?
It was a long twilight.
Yeah. And during that time at the Red Sox, you were with Jose Canseco in 95 and 96?
95, I believe you're correct on 95. I don't know if,
All right.
if he left or...
And then you were with him on the Blue Jays, what year?
Well, I was with Toronto 97, 98. And I'm going to say that, again, I'm not for sure, but I think he was there 1998.
Okay. And then he was subsequently on the Yankees with you in 2000. Is that correct? 2001, 2000, I believe.
I don't know.
Right. He was on the Yankees with you for a period of time in either 2000 or 2001.
He was a teammate of mine with the Yankees.
Right. Now, do you remember, I asked you this before, but I want to be sure about your testimony on this. Do you remember that you said to him at some point that if you bleed Jose, you're going to bleed Decadurobalin, or some words to that effect?
No, I don't.
You don't have any recollection of that?
I don't.
All right. Do you acknowledge that those who think that you use steroids may have been suspicious of you using steroids because you were so often in this period while McNamee was alleging this with Jose Canseco?
Object to the form.
You know, say that again, please.
Well, sure. Do you acknowledge that people who believe you use steroids cite as evidence the fact that you were with 3 teams with Jose Canseco?
Object to the form.
I don't know that to be true.
But do you acknowledge that they believe that to be true?
Object
that
to
you
the form.
think that they believe that to be true?
Again, rephrase your question on that with Jose Canseco. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Well, the fact is you were on 3 teams with Jose Canseco, and you knew that you believed he was using steroids, and you talked with him about steroids, right?
I assumed he was using steroids,
Right.
and I think I made 1 or 2 comments to him about it.
And you overlapped with him on 3 different teams over a period of about 6 years.
He was, I believe he was on, yes, he was on 3 teams that I was on, yes.
Over a period of about
Teammate.
6 years.
I think so.
Thereabouts. And do you believe that those facts might support people believing that you used steroids?
That
Performance.
Jose used steroids?
That Jose used steroids and you were overlapping with him and you were close friends and you used them therefore?
Object to the form.
Jose and I were friends and teammates, but I would hope that people didn't assume that that I was using steroids just because Jose Canseco was on my team.
Right. You would hope that, but you're not sure that they did. You thought they might have believed that, right?
I don't know what the people were thinking or ever who you're referring to.
Right. The writers who don't elect you to the Hall of Fame.
Boy, I really don't want to try and think for them.
All right. Now, another reason that people might believe that you took steroids during this period is because Andy Pettit, or performance-enhancing drugs, because Andy Pettit said that you had told him you did, right?
Object to the form.
Can you ask that again?
Didn't Andy
people?
Pettit say that you told him that you took HGH?
I believe Andy did testify to that.
Right. And he also said that McNamee told him around that time that you were taking steroids in the early 2000s.
Object to the form.
I don't know that I remember that.
Okay, well, isn't it in his affidavit at some point where he says that McNamee,
I believe you said testified.
what?
In your question, you said testified.
I'm sorry. Let me give you a copy of an affidavit from Market 5. Thank you, Deb.
There's a copy for you.
Yep.
Well, no, this is the HGH. Where's the one where he says steroid? That Mac told him that he was using steroids. Right. But in 2004, he said that Mac told him he was using steroids when he was mad at him about the neutral vitamins. Right. Sorry, this one, in this affidavit, sorry, you go ahead, finish reading it.
Okay.
You see that?
I do.
Have you seen this affidavit before?
I haven't.
And you've never read this affidavit before?
I haven't.
You've heard about it?
I think I've heard,
In the,
not all of it, I think I've heard Andy or some of these comments said.
right. And in the congressional hearings, you remember being questioned about his affidavit that was submitted to Congress, to the committee?
To the finding committee or to the Congress when I was in the hearing?
In the hearing,
In the hearing.
yeah.
And what was the question about the hearing?
Whether you remember them questioning you about this affidavit and Andy Pettit's statements.
Sorry. I remember some conversations, a question or two about Andy Pettit during the congressional hearing.
Okay. And you remember references to this affidavit concerning his statement that you told him that you used HGH?
I believe so.
All right. And you remember his statement that he told Brian McNamee that you told him in around 1999 or 2000 that you had said you used HGH?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
And just reading this here,
And you have no recall of that?
I remember being talked about in Congress. I think I answered to it. I don't remember the exact words in here or the exact my exact response.
And this evidence that he submitted to Congress, in your mind, isn't that a cause for people to believe that you used HGH?
Object to the form.
I don't believe so, no.
Why not?
Because I know the conversation that I had with Andy
Right.
that would have pertained to this. So
And what's your recollection of the conversation you had that pertained to this?
the conversation I remember with Andy was about a conversation in my, I believe in my gym, or my house or my property area that I told him about a story, an article, or a news report that I read about I believe it was 2 or 3 older men that were humpback, and that they had used HGH, and it helped them with their quality of life.
And when Andy Pettit testified about the conversation that you had with him in his gym, he said that you talked about it for yourself as helping with recovery, did he not?
Object to the form.
Not about old men.
I'm not sure about that, but
He didn't say anything about old men, did he?
I don't believe Andy did, no.
Right. He remembered it as you telling him you used it for recovery, right?
Object to the form.
I don't remember him telling me that.
All right. Right. And do you remember the testimony that by Andy Pettit that that Brian McNamee had told him that you used steroids?
Object to the form.
The testimony of Andy Pettit?
Yeah, that Andy Pettit said that you used steroids.
Are you talking about at the trial, or?
Yes, at the trial. Testimony at the trial that you used, that Brian McNamee said that you used steroids in a conversation sometime around 2003, 2004, before these other allegations all came out.
Object to the form.
I'm not sure about those dates, and I believe Andy testified to something of that nature. I just don't recall it.
And he said that McNamee was mad at you because you were upset with him about some promotional vitamin thing, right?
Object to the form.
You remember that?
Again, I remember hearing those words. I don't know if
Go ahead.
I can keep going if he's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay,
Go
we're
ahead.
good here. I remember those words being said, but I don't remember if it was Andy saying it or McNamee saying it. in testimony or someplace.
Well, I'm only asking you about whether Pettit said that McNamee told him around 2003 and 2004 about this, about your use of steroids.
Object to the form.
Again, I think I just read it, so
Well, this is HGH, right? I'm talking about steroids.
again, I don't know. I'm not sure what Andy said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
for that.
And do you remember that Andy Pettit in 2005 came to you to talk about your use of HGH?
2005.
Object to the form.
Kissimmee, Florida. He says that he came to talk to you.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember Kissimmee, Florida discussion?
I remember a conversation in Atlanta. I'm not sure that I remember conversation. We may have had a conversation in Kissimmee too.
And that he said that, what are you going to tell congressional investigators if they, or Congress, if they ask you about your use of HGH?
Object to the form.
Did he ask you that?
I'm sorry?
Did he ask you words to that effect?
Object to the form.
I don't remember that specific part of it.
What do you remember?
I remember Andy asking me a conversation about, I believe it was Atlanta, not Kissimmee. And it had to do with what I believed was a report by the LA Times. And Andy asked me, we were going to address the media, and he asked me, he basically asked me a couple questions.
Just as accurately and as
Okay.
clearly as you can, just explain to him what you
well, I'm-
remember
I'm
about
get-
the,
I'm
hold
get-
on, what you
okay.
remember about the conversation. Go ahead.
Well, I'm guessing about the conversation, and I can tell you that the thing that I remember about it was that he asked me, well, what are you going to say? And I believe I said, what do you mean what I'm going to say? I'm going to go out here and tell the truth, and I shouldn't be in any report about in the LA Times, and I think it had to do with the Jason Grimsley and working out with Jason Grimsley, which I never have. So I think that was the gist of the conversation.
And so you don't remember a conversation where you told him that he was mistaken about his recollection, that you told him there was HGH, that you were using HGH?
I believe there was a conversation about that he asked me about HGH, yes.
And what you were going to say about your use of that HGH, right? That's what he was going to ask you.
I believe so.
And you told him that he was mistaken, that that was your wife who used HGH, not you. Is that correct?
Yes.
And where did that conversation take place, according to you?
Again, it could have been Kissimmee. I believe it could have been Kissimmee. I'm guessing. I just know there were two different conversations, and one was, I believe, Kissimmee, and one was Atlanta.
All right. Now, focusing on the one solely about him saying, what are you going to say about your use of HGH and your response to that. Can we do that?
Yes.
What was your exact response?
I never did HGH.
Right. But he said, you said you did HGH. What'd you say to that?
Object to the form.
You can answer.
I said I never did HGH.
Right. And that's all? That's the end of the conversation?
I would say I remember the conversation where I said, I don't know if I said he was mistaken or what have you, but I told him that it was, I had to tell him it was my wife, Debbie. I don't remember the exact words or how, or again, I feel like I'm guessing on Kissimmee, I'm not sure.
But you told him your wife Debbie did, and you think that he was confused about that? Is that what you said?
I'm pretty sure that would be.
Richard, can I help you with, just so you can follow up? He and Andy have always had different memories as to when the conversation and where. So if
Well,
you
I
ask him open-endedly,
I understand, but
I'm
I'm
sure he'll
just
tell
talking
you.
about the conversation, not necessarily where. I
Okay.
know the difference between their memories on that.
Okay.
The conversation that I'm trying to focus on here is one in around 2005 where he asks you what you're going to say, and you bring up the fact that you never used it, you say, and that he must have been mistaken because Debbie used it.
Object
right?
to the form.
And when do you say that you had told him that Debbie used it?
I can't remember. I remember the words that you just said because I believe I remember Andy saying them at the hearing, or not a hearing, it was a trial. And but I remember I remember saying that.
Well, the only prior conversation that you've testified to where you had a discussion with Andy about HGH, according to you, was about old men with humpbacks, right?
Object to the form.
I would believe so, in addition to we were in Atlanta. And again, I don't know in 2005 if that was the end of the year in Atlanta or it was 2006 at the end of the year. I'm not sure.
Well, whichever it was. The only one you remember prior to that was a discussion about old men with humpbacks, right?
Object to the form. We're getting confused about the times in all these
No,
conversations.
the prior conversation, the conversation that you had with Andy Pettit, that he came to you to discuss, where you say he misinterpreted you, the only one prior to either 2005 or 2006 was about old men with humpbacks, right?
Well, I believe there was a conversation about, for some reason, HGH came up, and I'm not sure who prompted it, but I remember seeing a TV special or an article about 2 or 3 older men that were humpbacked.
Right.
And again, I believe if I had it correct, they were using HGH, and it gave them quality of life back. I don't know if that was a first I believe it was the first conversation that I had with Andy in a gym or in passing
and
at
the
my
next
house.
And the next conversation you had was either in Kissimmee or Atlanta, and it came up in the context of what are you going to say if they're going to ask you, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, isn't that what you just testified to? That you had one conversation, and then Andy came and said, what are you going to say, and that he that he confused
But Richard,
what happened prior time.
You haven't asked him if in the first conversation, was that all that was said? That's what's
Well,
misleading.
don't coach him now.
I'm not coaching him.
All right, let's have it. Let him
Well,
answer
you're
the
getting
question.
confused the way you're asking the question.
Let me
I
ask
can't
him the
understand
question
it.
and let him answer.
Right.
What he can say he's confused. He's perfectly capable of that. He's done it several times.
I'm confused.
All right. You testified that your first conversation with Andy about HGH, you said it was about humpback men, right?
I believe that was the first conversation. The question I believe that you asked me was something that Andy thought he had heard, that I'd use HGH, and I believe that was the subject that I was talking about, or something of that nature.
And you never told Andy that your wife used HGH prior to the time when you said it in 2005 or thereabouts, right?
I don't know that. I know I told Andy when he asked me, and again, I don't know if it was what you're saying, Kissimmee, a conversation in Kissimmee, or Atlanta.
But it was one of those two, one or the other.
I'm not sure.
And that's where you told him that Debbie had used HGH, but not you, right?
I know I told him that.
Right.
I just don't know
But
when.
you never told him prior to that Debbie had used HGH at any time, did you?
Object to the form.
To confuse him. That would have confused him.
I'm confused right
All right.
now. But
Well, here, in 2005, or at either Atlanta or Kissimmee, you told Andy Pettit, you revealed a private matter about your wife that she used HGH, right?
I know I told Andy that.
Right. It was
Debbie
private.
used-
It was. You said yourself before. I revealed to him that my wife used HGH, or words to that effect, didn't you?
I believe I told Andy that Deb had taken a shot of HGH.
Right. And you'd never told him that any time prior to that, had you?
Object to the form.
You may answer.
What was the year?
2005, 2006, whenever Kissimmee or Atlanta occurred. You never told him about your wife before that.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'd never told him about anybody's use of HGH other than humpback men, according to you. Is that right?
Object to the form.
I don't know that.
Your only discussion about HGH with Andy prior to your to Kissimmee or Atlanta was humpback men, to your recollection.
Object to the form.
Again, I don't remember the specific date, but I think Andy brought it up in Atlanta.
Do you have any explanation for how he could have confused his belief that you said you used HGH, other than this conversation about humpback men?
Object to the form.